Good evening and welcome to Gravitas. I'm Rohit Gandhi. Behind me are three powerful images captured on CCTV or on mobile phones. These shocking videos make the world numb, seeing people being killed in cold blood. But while modern technology can be a valuable tool in the war against terror, sadly, it can also act as an instrument for propaganda for terrorist groups. Staying with the theme on the use of social media, on Gravitas tonight, we look at two stories that highlight the power of this medium. A Facebook post by the wife of an Indian soldier stranded along 41 onboard leaking ships in the United Arab Emirates. From the neighboring Pakistan, 4 prominent social activists have disappeared. There are fears that they may have been abducted by security agencies. And finally, we look at Afghanistan, the country's murky slave trade involving young boys. But first, we turn our attention to 41 Indians stranded aboard sinking ships in the UAE harbor. WION accessed exclusive photos and videos of the vessels. These are heart-wrenching images of desperate men ladling out buckets of water to stay afloat, even as the country's External Affairs Minister promises to save our sailors and get them help they need. Take a look.
"41 Indian soldiers on 4 merchant ships, surviving on rice and dal for the past few months. Water only for drinking, and no salaries paid in many months." The families of the sailors were wary of speaking to WION, afraid for the lives of their menfolk. Some said they had been warned against talking to the press. The drama is being played out in the United Arab Emirates, the tiny emirate of Ajman, where the unfortunate sailors and their ships have been at anchor. This video shows the deck of one of the 4 ships. It is a merchant vessel used for transporting oil. But the condition of this vessel is not good, as is visible in the rust marks. On the main deck, sailors are removing seawater which has entered the lower compartments. They're using buckets instead of pumps. The Indian mission in Dubai sent WION this note which said, and I quote, "The consulate has spoken to the sponsor and sought his assistance for the settlement of all issues with the crew on a priority basis. It is hoped that an amicable solution will be forthcoming." Bureau Report, WION.
You can see the seawater.
This is an all too common story of Indian sailors on foreign merchant vessels being left stranded in foreign ports. Why does this happen again and again? And what more needs to be done to safeguard the interests of Indians working abroad, foreign vessels? Joining me on the show to try and answer some of those questions from Chennai is Hari Narayanan, member of United Maritime Law Chambers. But before that, I spoke with Rajesh Goli, captain of one of the stranded ships, and Mr. K. Muralidharan, who is India's Deputy Consul General in Dubai. I started by asking Mr. Goli what the situation on the vessel is right now.
I'm the captain of one of the affected ship that discussed earlier. 4 ships we have affected that we already informed to Sushma ma'am. So we have a report that we need our salaries and we want to fly our homes as soon as possible. As it's a very difficult situation and very horrible situation here to make to pass the days, as the owner is not at all responding for us.
And as far as the vessel is concerned, as per the reports, it is leaking. If you can tell us what the exact situation is there.
Yes, 2 of the ships named MV Salem and one ship is MV Rock. These 2 ships got holes, and yesterday our owner sent 2 divers by getting the pressure from Indian government. We sent two divers, but diver inspected the holes, but they are saying it's a very big holes for us. We will try our best, but still now we didn't got any response from their side.
You're also not allowed to leave the ship, even if it's sinking. It is leaking and you're not allowed, as per the law, to leave the ship. Why is that?
As per the rules and as per the law, we cannot abandon the ship like that. We are taking measures by pumping out water as much as we can. If emergency will come, definitely the captain will abandon the ship.
Has there been any help coming your way from the consulate so far?
Yes. From the last 3-4 days, we are getting some response. Yesterday, we had a call from Mr. Dharan Kumar. He is senior counsel of Dubai Indian Embassy, and Navneet Puri, even the Indian ambassador. They spoke with me and they said soon they are going to solve the matter, and they have taken the case very seriously.
I spoke with Mr. Dharan and began by asking what he could tell us about the conditions of the sailors on those ships.
Yeah, the sailors have got sufficient fuel, food and water, and their only contention is that they want to get the pending salaries and release. Sufficient stock is available for at least for a couple of weeks. This has been confirmed by the captains of two of the vessels. All the 4 vessels are together, so there is no problem.
Have you been able to contact the owners? Who exactly is the person who owns these ships?
Yeah, the sponsor of all these 4 vessels is one person, and he is available in UAE. We are in contact with him, and the matter will be sorted out at the earliest.
We've heard those two viewpoints. Let's speak with our maritime expert, Mr. Narayanan, for more perspective now. Mr. Narayanan, what according to you would be the first option that India can exercise here?
See, this is a very unfortunate incident where our men are stranded in an unknown place, not able to get sufficient food and provisions for their maintenance, especially when the owner of the ship has kind of abandoned them. If the vessel is not an Indian vessel and the owner is not an Indian citizen, there isn't much we can do legally to protect the interest of the seafarers. If, as the consulate officer had just now mentioned, provision is made for giving food and other things to the seafarers, I think to get back the wages, the only option available to the seamen is to move the court in UAE, invoking the Admiralty jurisdiction of the UAE court, and get the vessel arrested, because the claim for wages can be considered as a maritime claim, and then you can proceed against the vessel, and by sale you can recover the amount as salary.
Mr. Narayan, if I can interject there, what challenges are faced in situations like these involving international waters? Because this is not the first time this is happening. This has happened many, many times before. You know, sailors have been stranded in waters and they don't know what to do, and sometimes for months.
Absolutely. This is not the isolated incident. This has been happening all over the world. In such situations, the appropriate authority to take action is either the flag state or the country in which the owner is residing. But unfortunately, in this case, the vessel is flagged, I think, with some foreign unknown country, and then the owner is also residing in some other country. Therefore, legally, India cannot exercise a jurisdiction over a foreign citizen unless he comes and surrenders to our jurisdiction. We cannot take any action against, because Indian courts doesn't have extraterritorial jurisdiction. So we have got limitations in proceeding legally. But then the only option available is to move through the consulate officer in UAE and try and talk to these people and get the release of the men.
Well, how can India guarantee safer options to its sailors when taking employment abroad, foreign vessels? I'm sure other countries have a way of doing this.
Yes, recently the Maritime Labour Convention, which India has also ratified, has come into effect, which provides for mechanisms to deal with such situations. So, if the convention and its provisions are strictly implemented, it's basically the agency which recruit the crew to these vessels. They have to ensure that the owner is sound, and then in case of any emergency, they must take the responsibility for proper repatriation of the crew back to their home country. But unfortunately, that is not being strictly followed, and the result is that these men are getting stranded without any food or means of livelihood.
Mr. Narayan, I look at the situation of these sailors and I say, are these sailors legally bound to stay on board? I remember, hearing growing up that you do not leave the ship. But in this case, the ship is standing right on a harbor in UAE and water is filling in and they're having to throw the water out daily. This is a very risky situation to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. See, in such a situation, the port authorities in UAE, where the ship is now lying, can take action to prevent a possible wreck. Because as you just now mentioned, there is holes in the ship and then it is going to be in a sinking state. So to avoid a wreck in the port authorities can remove the ship from that place. Because if the ship is declared as wreck, then all the men on board the ship can be rescued. Now, without the permission of the owner, the master and the crew is unable to come out of the ship. But once the ship is declared as wreck, then they can come out and they can ask for help and then come out of the ship.
But what if these sailors decide to abandon this ship? Will they face legal consequences in UAE?
See, you cannot just abandon a vessel unless the vessel is in real distress. So if there is a distress, there is provision which says that you have to contact the nearest port authority and inform that the ship is in a dangerous situation and then they should provide some assistance. So unless and until these procedures are strictly followed, it's not legally permissible to abandon the ship just like that, just because the owner has refused to pay the salary or that he is not taking interest in the proper upkeep of the vessel.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Narayan, for speaking with us here on WION. It is amply clear that a lot more needs to be done to ensure safer seas for sailors. For now, we can only hope that these men get the help that they need at the very soonest. What will also be required is support from people such as yourself watching the television today. Go out and tweet to the Indian Foreign Affairs Minister. Go out and tweet to the UAE ministers and ask for support for these sailors, because people cannot be left on a boat like that on barely any food and water on a ship. So I think it's a responsibility of everybody watching to make sure that these sailors can get out of there and come back home. On that note, we are going to take a short break. But when we return, we have 4 of Pakistan's most prominent social activists who've gone missing. We talk more about their disappearance when we return. Stay with us.